I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear that I will
100 days on from Donald
execute
Trump's return to the White House, and we've been hearing a lot of people reflect on what have been an eventful few months.
God bless the USA.
Last night, though, Americans heard from the man himself.
This is the best, they say, 100-day start of any president in history, and everyone is saying it. We've just gotten started. You haven't even seen anything yet. It's all just kicking in. And week by week, we're ending illegal immigration. We're taking back our jobs and protecting our great American auto workers and all of our workers, frankly. We're protecting all of our workers.
He may believe it's been a record-breaking start, but not all Americans agree. A recent poll by AP suggested that 4 in 10 Americans already think Trump has been a terrible president in his second term. Another 1 in 10 say he's been poor, and only 3 in 10 say he was great or good. As you might expect, President Trump isn't the biggest fan of those figures.
And that's why we got, despite the fake polls, you know, they do these polls where they interview far more Democrats than Republicans. I saw them over the last few days, and I had them checked out. They interview far more Democrats for the polls. They interview Democrats by big numbers and then Republicans by small. They say, Trump only has a 44% approval rating. Well, it's actually not bad. But when you figure that if it were a legit poll, it would be in the 60s or 70s. These people are a bunch of crooked people.
There can be no denying, though, that there are a significant number of people who are critical of both Mr. Trump's policies and the speed and strength with which he's implemented them. At least one protester tried to make their voice heard inside the event before being escorted out, and there were many more outside.
I'm trying to support this country when in its moment of need. It's time to take a stand. 100 days have been too long, and the reality is we've got to get back to having a great country again and not being divided. I've been going to protests since like 2 months ago, and there has been some big ones. This one feels substantial. Of course, it's in opposition to Trump being here.
We can extend grace to the president and the administration on economic policy and domestic policy, but when it comes to foreign policy and there's loss of life, I feel like it's a more pressing priority and something that the administration needs to really acknowledge and recognize the impact that we're having on others around the globe, specifically in the Middle East.
We've seen numerous announcements on tariffs over the last 100 days as levies on imports into the United States have been introduced, increased or decreased repeatedly. Speaking in Michigan, the heartland of the US auto industry, there was a little potential relief for car makers.
And to help these automakers bring their factories home as rapidly as possible, I've just signed an executive order to give partial tariff rebates to any company that assembles its cars right here in the U.S. In other words, if they can't make it in time because they have to do it here, otherwise they have it, I'm giving them a little bit of a break, right? They took in parts from all over the world. I don't want that. I want them to make their parts here. But I gave them a little bit of time. It's 15% and then 10% of the parts, so it's not so bad.
As President Trump heads back to Washington tonight, he can take a moment to look back on those first 100 days. But many Americans will be looking at the uncertainty they've seen so far and pondering what they might see in the next 1,360. David Harper, ITV News.